Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is vanish, not because you're weak, not because you've failed, but because you need to heal. In a world that demands your constant presence, your voice, your face, your endless updates, the act of disappearing can feel like rebellion, like self-preservation, like freedom. This story isn't just about fading away, it's about learning that silence can be strength, and absence can be the only path back to yourself. If you've ever felt the urge to step back, to vanish from the noise, this is your sign. It's okay to disappear. Subscribe now, because stories like this will remind you that you're not alone, even when you choose to be. It's okay to disappear. That phrase echoed in Alex's mind for years, though at first it was more of a whisper than a conviction, a passing thought that arose when the noise of the world grew too heavy. Alex was the type of person who carried everyone else's burdens as if they were their own, who answered messages at 2 in the morning, who showed up to every gathering, who tried to be everywhere at once and everything to everyone. For a long time, that performance was mistaken for living. People admired the energy, the commitment, the way Alex seemed to never tire. But deep inside, a different reality was taking shape, a quiet exhaustion that no one else could see. There is a certain kind of fatigue that doesn't show up in the body but in the soul, and Alex felt it growing heavier every year. Life had become a carousel of endless responsibilities, deadlines, expectations, and the constant hum of connection that social media demanded. The phone never stopped buzzing, the emails never stopped arriving, the notifications never ceased to demand attention. At first, Alex convinced himself that this was normal, that this was adulthood, that being available at all times meant being dependable, valuable, and loved. But the truth was that the constant visibility was suffocating. When you are always present, people forget you're human. They begin to believe you are a resource, not a person, a name they can summon when needed. That realization hit Alex one evening after a long day at work, when they found themselves scrolling endlessly through messages and feeds, their eyes aching, their mind numb, yet still feeling the weight of obligation to reply, to perform, to appear active, to exist in digital spaces where silence felt like abandonment. That night, Alex asked a dangerous but necessary question: what if I just stopped? What if I disappeared? At first, the thought terrified them. The idea of vanishing, of stepping out of the stream, of not posting, not answering, not showing up, felt like betrayal, not just of others but of the self-image Alex had worked so hard to create. For years, Alex had been the reliable one, the strong one, the constant presence in everyone else's storm. To disappear would mean to shatter that illusion, to admit that maybe they were not invincible, that maybe they needed space, that maybe they were human after all. But over time, fear gave way to longing. What would silence sound like? What would solitude feel like? What would life be without the endless notifications, without the performance of presence, without the weight of being available to everyone but themselves? Slowly, almost unconsciously, Alex began to retreat. It started small, turning off the phone for an hour, ignoring messages for an evening, not responding to emails until the next morning. The world didn't collapse. People asked questions, but life went on. And in those brief moments of disconnection, Alex felt something they hadn't felt in years: peace. Disappearing, Alex realized, didn't have to mean vanishing forever. It could mean reclaiming time, reclaiming space, reclaiming the parts of the self that had been buried beneath obligations. Still, disappearing is rarely accepted without resistance. Friends noticed. Coworkers asked questions. Family members grew worried. Are you okay? They would ask, as though silence itself were a symptom of illness. But Alex learned to smile and say yes, even when the truth was more complicated. Because yes, they were okay, better than okay. For the first time in years, they were breathing. There's a strange freedom that comes when you stop explaining yourself, when you allow others to misunderstand you, when you realize you don't owe anyone an explanation for your silence. Alex discovered that people's discomfort with disappearance had less to do with concern and more to do with their own dependency. People like having access to you. They like the comfort of knowing you're one call, one text, one notification away. When you disappear, you remind them that you are not theirs to summon. And that truth unsettles them. The first month of disappearing was the hardest. The silence felt unnatural, even guilty. Alex's hands itched to reach for the phone, to type explanations, to reassure others they were fine. But with each passing day, the silence grew easier, even beautiful. They noticed details in the world they had overlooked. The way sunlight shifted across the floor in the late afternoon. The distant hum of traffic that had always been drowned out by music and podcasts. The way their own breath felt steady when they simply sat still. These were things Alex had once thought they had no time for, but disappearing created time. In that emptiness, a new kind of fullness began to emerge. Weeks turned into months. Alex started reading again, real books, not articles skimmed between notifications. They began journaling, pouring out thoughts without worrying how they might be received, because for once, they were writing only for themselves. They took long walks, sometimes in the city, sometimes in nature, without headphones, without distraction, just listening to the rhythm of their footsteps. The world hadn't changed, but Alex had. They no longer felt trapped in a performance. They were living quietly, intentionally, in a way that felt true. Yet disappearing came with costs. Some friendships withered. Some people took offense, misinterpreting the silence as rejection. Others simply drifted away, unable to connect without constant communication. At first, Alex grieved those losses. But with time, they realized that the relationships which couldn't survive their silence were never built to last. The ones who mattered learned to respect the space, to trust that silence wasn't absence of love, but presence of self-care. Through disappearing, Alex learned the hardest truth of all, that the world keeps moving without you, and that's okay. For years, Alex had lived with the illusion that their presence was indispensable, that if they stopped showing up, things would collapse. But the world didn't collapse. Work carried on. Friends found other shoulders to lean on. Family adjusted. Life continued. At first, that realization stung, because it meant Alex wasn't as necessary as they thought. But then it liberated them, because it meant they were free. They could step away without guilt, without fear, because the truth was that everyone is replaceable, and that's not tragedy, it's freedom. To disappear, Alex realized, is to accept that you are not the center of the universe. You don't have to be. You don't have to be visible to be valuable. You don't have to perform presence to prove worth. And so Alex kept disappearing, not in one dramatic vanishing act, but in small, steady choices. They deleted social media accounts one by one. They stopped announcing their every move. They stopped apologizing for delayed replies. They embraced the quiet. Some days they still felt the pull of old habits, the urge to check, to update, to prove they still existed in digital spaces. But then they reminded themselves, existing doesn't require broadcasting. Living doesn't require visibility. Joy doesn't require an audience. It's okay to disappear. If you've ever felt the weight of being too visible, too available, too present in a world that demands everything, let this story be your reminder. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to vanish. You are allowed to choose yourself. Disappearing isn't weakness, it's survival, it's strength, it's a reclamation of your own life. Don't be afraid of the silence, it's where you'll find your truest voice. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs the courage to disappear, and subscribe for more stories that remind you it's okay to be human.